Hey guys, how's it going? Sweet, awesome. Hey, like they said, my name is Nathaniel Norell, and I consider it a huge privilege and honor to be speaking to all of you guys tonight. And you're a lot of people, so I'm a little bit nervous, but we'll see how this goes. For most missionary kids, the question, where are you from, is not an easy one to answer. But for me, that wasn't a difficult question because I have always lived in the Dominican Republic. But that all changed about 2 years ago when my parents moved to Minnesota. So when people ask me, so do you now consider yourself a Minnesotan? I look at them and say, oh yeah, sure you betcha. The truth is, I'm a Latino stuck in a white man's body, and I relate to the life and culture of the Dominican Republic. So let me tell you a little bit about the Dominican Republic. The Dominican culture is the best. If you ever talk to someone who has visited the DR, they'll tell you that the Dominicans are super loving, kind, outgoing, hospitable, joyful, and selfless. They greet each other with hugs and side cheek kisses, and simply love to spend time with one another. Our family visited the States every other summer to stay in touch with family and supporters. So I know the American culture pretty well, but I never felt like I belonged in the States because it wasn't the culture I was used to, and I felt like I couldn't really be myself. Apparently, here in the States, it's considered flirtatious and misleading to greet ladies with side cheek kisses. Let's just say I had to learn this the hard way. Clashes like these happen when different cultures encounter each other for the first time. It's weird and awkward, but it's a part of life, and you learn from it. So whether you are from a third world country or from a different state in the US, it's easy to feel out of place when you move to a new location and a new culture. So I want to leave you with these 3 points that I have learned over the year. Number 1, it's okay to miss home. Isn't that great to hear? Like, you might not think so, but it's okay to miss home. When I left the DR, I felt like I had to act like it was no big deal, although I felt torn inside. I didn't know how to deal with sadness and had never gone through an experience where I had to leave home knowing that I would never be going back to live there. Give me 1 second, sorry. Some of you had to travel far to get here, knowing that you won't see your family for a while others just live an hour away from Biola or right across the street. But in whichever situation you find yourself, it's important to remember that it's okay to miss home. This simply reveals the importance that your family and culture have in your life. But know that God has placed you in a new season, which leads me to my second point. Number 2, take advantage of this new season of life. Your attendance here at Biola is not a coincidence. God has placed you here for a reason, and each one of you bring a unique piece of the puzzle that makes up the Biola community. Your presence is a part of the richness of our university that is every day trying to reflect the image and body of Christ. We were designed by God to live in community and have relationships with one another. That's why I think it's hard to transition from home to another place, because you are not only leaving a place that you're comfortable with, you're also leaving a lot of loved ones behind. When I was transitioning from the Dominican Republic to Biola, what helped me transition was developing new friendships. And the way I did that was by getting involved in the Biola community. Opportunities like joining a club, an intramural sport, SMU, Student Missionary Union, a chapel worship team, or applying to be an SOS leader or a resident advisor are just a few of the many ways one can get involved here at Biola. So please get involved, because take advantage of your time here and enjoy every second of college, because sadly, these 4 years fly by really fast. And my third and final point is have fun. Biola is such a fun place with so many amazing people. Also, we live in California, where there are so many amazing places to explore. You could visit LACMA, the Griffith Observatory, chill at Huntington Beach, surf at Laguna Beach, hike up to the Hollywood Sign, backpack Yosemite, climb Mount Whitney, or just bike to In-N-Out, which is a whole adventure in itself. So, these are just a few of the many things you can do in the beautiful state that we live in. So to recap, number 1, it's okay to miss home. Don't keep that inside, process with someone. It's okay to mourn over something that you've left behind. But with that being said, number 2, take advantage of this new season of life God has placed you in. Don't live in the past, because then you can't fully be present for what God has to offer you in this new season. And number 3, have fun. So to conclude, in one way or another, all of us have left home to attend Biola. And God has brought us together for a special window of time. Let's leave the past behind, be present, and give God all the glory. Thank you.
It's pretty hot in here. Before I start, I just want to say how I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to speak here. Honestly, I hope I do not fall asleep on the podium because I've just had a really long day today. So bear with me. Assalamu alaikum, namaste, namaskaram, kumusta, and hello. I know what you all must be thinking. Since I'm saying hello in these 5 languages, I must know all of them fluently. Unfortunately, I do not. The only language that I know fluently is English. However, the reason why I said hello in these 5 languages is because these languages are a representation of the cultures that I have been associated with ever since I could remember. I was born in the Middle East, in the Kingdom of Bahrain, which is a tiny, tiny, tiny island in the Middle East off the coast of Saudi Arabia in the Persian Gulf. Now, whenever I tell people where I'm from, the minute they hear the word island, they all have this notion of Bahrain being an exotic, lush, and green oasis. I hate to break it to you, but it isn't. Bahrain is a desert, and it is one of the most hottest countries to live in. You guys in California complain about the heat being unbearable here? Come to Bahrain, I'll show you what unbearable is. From the time I was born till I was about 17, I grew up in a hospital called the American Mission Hospital. It was set up by missionaries that came to Bahrain during the early 1900s from the Reformed Church of America, also known as RCA, to share the gospel to the local Bahrainis. My father worked there as a general practitioner for more than 30 years, as it was his dream to work and live in a mission hospital that shared his passion and vigor for serving the Lord in the medical field. And personally, for me, it was the coolest thing ever. I had no issues with my health, and if I was lucky, I could get to see a couple of surgeries being done, but just a few minor ones though. Apart from the unbearable heat, Bahrain is a very cool place to live in. It is culturally diverse and one of the very few places in the Middle East where people are allowed to have freedom of worship. Bahrain is predominantly rooted in the teachings of Islam, but Christianity also has an equally strong presence. However, since the Egyptian Revolution in 2011, the Middle East has been suffering in a revolutionary wave of protests that has brought upon violence and the death of innocent people due to political issues such as the violation of basic human rights, equality, and the call for proper democracy. Even within a country that supports freedom of worship, religious tolerance is something that has not been fully grasped. The Lord is working in the Middle East as we speak, and we should continue to pray that the people will come to know the salvation of Christ. Although Bahrain is culturally diverse, the majority of people living there are mostly Indians and Filipinos. Growing up there as an Indian was truly tough for me. As a child, I was bullied in school because I was considered to be stupid and weak. When I was 8 years old, I met with a terrible accident that left me partially and physically disabled, and I underwent extreme depression throughout my high school years. I was considered to be an outcast in my culture because my interest didn't lie in the profession of medicine, business, or engineering. I resigned myself to loneliness and neglected my relationship with Christ. I couldn't identify myself with my family, my friends, or my church, and I began to think that my life was going nowhere. But lo and behold, God came to my rescue. He led me to Jeremiah 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. With that verse came a new reason to live. That was to live a life serving Christ with the talents that he had given me. Now fast forward to Biola. Biola wasn't my first choice, but God wanted me to come here. Ever since I applied to the music program here, God has been working miracles to get me here, and I couldn't help but feel excited for the new journey that I was about to start. I remember the first day of global orientation as if it was yesterday. All that nervous energy that I had about being in a new country with new people and with a new culture had all vanished. For the first time, I had met people who could really see me for who I am, beyond my accent, skin color, and any kind of stereotype. As a musician, I found a community where people had the same passions as I had and encouraged me to pursue my talents to the glory of God. I truly felt that people saw me for who I am in the image that I made in Christ. God taught me something last year when I was a freshman. Transitions are hard, but they are important, and He knows and sees that. Whenever we're plagued by overwhelming situations, we tend to forget that we are not alone. But it is in our times of despair, God always makes a way for us to come back to Him. And I close with Jeremiah 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Thank you.
Luckily for me, my brother's not here anymore, so he can't argue with anything I say. So let me start off by saying that yes, I have an accent. Everyone has an accent. You have an accent too. It's just familiar to you, so you don't really notice it. I promise you it's not just a foreign or southern thing. How was it living in South Africa and Dubai, you ask? Great question, guys. I moved out of South Africa when I was 5, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. Suffice it to say that we had cars, roads, and real houses. And I'm sorry, but we did not have lions freely roaming the streets. It's disappointing, I know. I loved growing up in Dubai. It's a wonderful country. The locals are less than 10% of the population. So when you go outside, you're literally like rubbing shoulders from people with people that are from at least 20 different countries. If you leave your house, that is, which I was homeschooled, so that didn't happen too often. And yeah, we have roads and cars and all of those things in Dubai as well. If you have any questions about my countries, you can ask me if you see me around. I love talking about them, so you can do that. That being said, my transition to America and Biola was ridiculously easy for me. Everything just kind of clicked and fell into place my freshman year. I made friends everywhere. It was really easy. I wasn't expecting that at all. I'm a really shy person, so like, this is kind of my idea of hell. And like, the idea of coming to a place where I knew like my brother and no one else, and having to actually talk to people and make friends was not very appealing to me. But God just provided for me. I had friends from my floor, my classes, from global orientation, from just my major, from the ministry that I was and am co-leading, Naked Ministries, and this year from SMU, which is amazing, and everyone should apply and volunteer, and yes, the people are wonderful, and that's been a great blessing to me this year. But on top of that, there are also like pre-Biola friends, and like all of these people that are just suddenly in your life and that you see almost every day and that you have to care about. Weird. And naturally, this like wasn't hard for me at all. Like, I was an amazing friend and a role model in every single way. I never made a mistake or hurt anyone or let anyone down. It was all perfect. Obviously, this is not true at all. Here's what the problem was. There were just too many people. No matter how hard you try, you can never fully be invested in a lot of different communities. It just isn't realistic. You can't say, yeah, I'll be there for the birthdays and like weekly meals and peace out on the everyday circumstances of people's lives. I've learned that good friendships, strong friendships, are built on the small, unexpected moments of stupidity and vulnerability that naturally occur from just doing life with people. You can't force them, and you can't predict them. Because I spread myself so thin, I feel like I robbed myself of having a strong community of friends, because I didn't know how to choose friends, and when I did, I often felt that I chose poorly. As a result, I was absent from a lot of my friends' lives, and I was inconsistent with most of them. I have a trail of disappointed friends and hurt feelings following me, and I can't change that. I can't take it back, which is horrible, and I hate that part. But before I move on, let me just say there are and were many good things that happened as well. Every time that I felt achingly alone, God would send a new friend to comfort me. He let me feel the loneliness and grow through that, but he never abandoned me in it, and he never will. I can hold on to the countless times that God has comforted me through friends and be reassured that he will continue to do so. He might not always send people when I want them to be there, but they do show up eventually, every time. We can all be sure of that. This also means that you have to put in the effort with people, though, to make good friends. Make friends that teach you more about who God is, and strive to do the same for them. I consider those to be the most successful friendships, those that stay true to what friendships ought to be. In light of all of this, I would just like to encourage all of you to be consistent, true to your word, dependable, and commit to people. Schedule that weekly coffee. It seems insignificant, but I have one of my best friends because of that. Have study sessions together. It's worth it. You might not be productive at all, but those are the times that you really grow together and just suffer together through this horrible thing called homework. I promise that your life will be much richer and fuller because of this. And people get the joy of being friends with you. Never underestimate your value as an individual and as a friend. You have things to offer that no one else has. It's true. I promise. And also don't take your friends for granted. Just because they're always there for you doesn't mean that you don't have to try. Think about what friendship means to you and ask people about it. It's honestly incredible how much you can learn about your friends through this. And try not to put too much pressure on your times with friends. Sometimes having a dance party in the street is a better use of your time than hours of deep talks and silent reflections. Don't force it. You'll end up with the weirdest and greatest friends if you let things happen naturally. Who knows? You might end up rooming with a nursing major with 6 sisters, or be best friends with a 50-foot tall guy with braces who wears interstate battery hats every day. Strange people, guys. This is a weird place. Anyway, take chances, prioritize people, have fun, and talk to the foreign kids. We don't bite, and we're usually kind of cool. I can't vouch for everyone, but most of us are kind of worth the effort. And yes, the end.
Thanks, guys. Wow, so many beautiful people. So on November 9th, 1989, 2 very special people watched their tiny TV in small-town Texas as President Ronald Reagan stated these words, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." They started weeping, and they knew that God was calling them to this country of Slavic people that were now free to help bring about their redemption. I used to resent my parents for moving to Slovakia before I was even born. I was angry because I didn't have any say in the matter. I was just born there, and I didn't have anything to do with it. And it was really hard because I was growing up in a country that was recovering from the after effects of communism. And with that, with Slovakia now being free, there was pressure that was economic and social, and to be seen, to be valued, and to be known, and to be significant in the world. And I could see that reflected in my own life as well. I felt like I was growing up in a country where I would never be loved fully for who I was or understood, or I would never love those people in that way. But I found that I was wrong about that, because it was in Slovakia where I truly began to realize what it means to pursue relationships with others as a daughter redeemed by Christ. So, a little geography lesson. Slovakia is rustic and super mountainous. It contains over 300 castles dotted throughout the countryside. That's it. And these castles sheltered towns from many wars that have ravaged the country over the years, and they're super incredible to behold. The people there are also super incredible. They're very different from Americans. We Americans are super outgoing and forward, and we just push ourselves onto others, but they are very reserved. And
They would never do something like we Americans would, like talk to a grocery lady about our day, because that would not go over well. I know from experience. But when describing Slovaks, I like to use this analogy. Slovaks are a lot like castles. They have super, super high outer walls, but they have very low inner walls. So this means that getting through to them emotionally and having them open up to you is super exhausting. But once they do open up their walls, then they will share so much with you. So I was back in Slovakia a couple summers ago helping with my parents' ministry with crew. And I met a girl named Vercha. And Vercha was very similar to all Slovak girls. She was very quiet and shy and super hard to get to open up. But by the end of the week, I knew that it would be super, super hard to say goodbye to her. On the last day of camp, I sat down with her to clearly present the gospel to her because she was not a believer. She had seemed very reserved over the week. But I chose to read her Revelation 3:20, which says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock, and whoever hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him." And I asked her if she understood what the door meant. And she just looked at me and said, "Mary Grace, the door is my heart, and I desperately want him to come inside of it." So after she prayed to receive Christ as her Savior, I prayed for her as well. And when I opened my eyes, tears were just streaming fast down her face. And she talked to me about her background and how her father had abandoned her when she was young, but now she knew that she had a heavenly Father who would be there with her and love her unconditionally forever. I was amazed because Jesus was already transforming her life. She was already experiencing a redeemed relationship in Christ, and it was just incredible to see. Through experiences like that I've had, I have come to have a passion for knowing all people and their manifold stories. I want to know people's stories and go deeper than normal, because I know that we normally judge people on the surface, and our experiences and thoughts go way deeper than what we normally think of people. So this summer, I was constantly asking, Lord, how can I love sacrificially for you? And ultimately, the question I was asking was, Jesus, how can what you have done for me, your sacrifice for me, transform me even more? And for me, I think it means daily taking risks and pursuing people in love, even if I don't want to, even if I think we're way too different to be relatable at all, or if I don't think they'll engage or reciprocate. And I think we can all get better at that. But what does that mean for us practically? Well, with GSP recently for me, that meant going to a Chinese restaurant and eating cold jellyfish. It was sick, nasty, and I felt like I was eating someone's ear. Seriously. But the experience was so awesome. I loved it because I was sharing and learning about someone who, like, their culture I didn't know. They were eating something that they were so used to, but it was so different for me, and it was just an incredible experience. So I just encourage you all to open yourself up to something that makes you uncomfortable. Learn someone's story that's acutely different from yours. And I want to end with a quote that my communications professor said last week from a man who used to work with international students at Biola. He said that when I am seen, I am loved. How is that relevant for you guys? Because I guarantee that it's relevant for you in some kind of way. Do you feel seen here? Or do you need to see others more? I encourage you all to think about that in the context of your church life, your Biola life, your family life. Do you guys need to eat cold jellyfish? Because recently I've learned that all people are like castles. We all have walls. And sometimes we need to tear down those walls and open ourselves up to those relationships that God calls us to enter into.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.